Submitting shall we found. See?
Hey, all right. We've got Peggy, we've got Shelby. Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to Peggy. All right, looks like we're going.
Cool.
You ready?
Yeah. No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah?
All right. Welcome to Books We've Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Jason.
I'm Nicole.
And this is going to be our first week with our first reading of the Flanders Panel by Reverte.
Mr. Reverte.
Mr. Reverte. It's a three-part name.
Arturo Perez Reverte.
Perez Reverte, yes.
There we go. So, yeah, before we get started, please make sure that this is what you're really intending to watch. We talk about each section of the reading as if you've already read it. So, spoilers abound, and we don't want to spoil anything for you.
Yep.
Some people like to be spoiled. I don't know.
If you haven't read the first 5 chapters, don't watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you're catching us live, please join us in the live chat. And if you're catching us later, please join us in the comments. We love to hear everyone else's ideas. And this is one of those books that really, I mean, you can just give so many wild guesses as to what's going on and what details are important and what details are not important. This can be a really fun one for everyone to just speculate wildly.
I've got some wild guesses.
We got Allison too.
Hey, good morning. Now, not only that, I want to jump back before we start talking about the book, though. We have a big announcement. Can we announce?
Yeah.
You did it, so why don't you?
Oh, I was like, I don't know what the announcement is.
You know what the announcement is.
Okay, so YouTube has there's YouTube video and then there's YouTube Music, which is a separate app. If you use the YouTube Music app, you can now search Books We Never Read and join that playlist that's on YouTube Music. And it's just the podcast version of all of our videos. So if you want to be able to, just listen along in the podcast section, then you're able to do that. So it's still all on YouTube. We're just available in more areas.
I have also started the process of putting the show on Spotify.
You did start it?
I started it.
Ooh, this is news to me too.
So we it's all just the same live show. It's the same thing that's on YouTube Music, but we're trying to make it available for people that we know can't just watch the show all the time, right? So you listen to it while you're riding in the car or whatever.
Right.
We do need to figure out our audio quality probably to make it more interesting when you can't see us.
That's our next goal is to really crack down on improving the audio. Y'all have been very patient and no one has complained, but when I listen to it, it does not sound the way that I would like for it to sound.
Great.
So
yeah, cool.
And of course, if y'all have any recommendations on ways that we can improve the show, more things that you'd like us to do or focus on, please send us that information. We're here for you. So
I also want to say hi to, we have a new viewer today, or at least somebody that I don't recognize. So good morning. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, Shelby?
Yeah, Shelby.
Yeah,
so
welcome.
Thanks for dropping by. Look, let's just jump right into this. It's time.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
What you got? What do you want to say?
Oh, I have all kinds of stuff. Okay. So, some things that I like. I love a good chapter inscription, right? So, like, each of these chapters has a little excerpt from some other piece of literature. Yeah. And anytime I read those, my brain immediately starts trying to work out the puzzle, right? Like, how does this relate and what clues does this give us? And is it the author that's important or is it the words that are important or is it some combination of things? Where's the author trying to get us to think? Mm-hmm. And so, to be honest, it was a slow start for me into this book, but that's probably because I don't know Spanish and the only audiobook available is in Spanish.
So she had to read this one.
I had to physically read it. But I got really excited with that very first chapter. What is that called? The little excerpt from some other reading. I'm sure it's called something. Yeah. But it was on the first chapter, The Secrets of Meister Van Huys. Yeah. God moves the player, and he in turn the piece. But what God beyond God begins the round of dust and time and sleep and agonies. First of all, I really love that. Second of all, I think it's really cool. This idea of life being a chess game or a checkers game, us chess being players that move other players, and then the question of what is it that's moving us. That's a very universal type of idea, and it immediately reminded me of these little short poems called Rubaiyat by a man named Omar Khayyam. This is like ancient history literature, like this is from back in the day. He's a Persian poet. He was an astronomer, he was a scientist, he was very mathematically inclined, and rubaiyats are very much like haikus. If you know, for a good point of reference, it's a very small stage in which you have to tell a story. Also, very much like the painting in this book, it's a very small stage that's having to tell a very complex story with very limited resources. Anyways, there were two rubaiyat. I know this is kind of a long venture, but just hang out with me for a minute. There's two rubaiyat that also deal with chess and checkers, and so I wanted to share them with you very quickly. One goes, but helpless pieces of the game he plays upon his checkerboard of nights and days, hither and thither moves and checks and slays, and one by one back in the closet lays. And it's very simple and it's very straightforward, but the more you pick apart the pieces, the more symbolism and kind of meaning you can get out of it. And then the other one that I really love is, we are no other than a moving row of magic shadow shapes that come and go, round with the sun-illumined lantern held in midnight by the master of the show. So they both have this idea of, we're part of a game that we are playing, we are controlling, but then there's also something else controlling us. And so I just thought that was fun, and I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. I'm gonna be honest. I'm really not like particularly enjoying this book so far, but the descriptions of like A6 to B7, like whatever, right? Like I get it, right? There's chess moves, but the way that Munoz sees what they're doing is probably the most interesting part to me, right? Like there are these pieces on a board, and these people in the painting are the pieces on a board. And then the artist who's painting them is a piece on this board, but then you are a piece on the board, and then the artist is still back there again, right? And sort of like these layers, and the way that he sees the game being played, I think is really interesting, and kind of like to your point, right? And then there's like God back there or whatever, right?
Right. Well, and then in the book, is God the painter, or is God the assassin? Like who's the one that's really calling the shots, that's forcing everyone else to call their shots. And that's also the most interesting part of the book for me so far, is the painting itself. And it's not just, so the floor is in the pattern of a chessboard. So that's telling us that the people in the room are players or being played.
Right.
So you've got Beatrice, and you've got Ferdinand, and you've got whoever else it is.
Aris.
There you go. There's also a mirror in the room that's reflecting the game being played.
Right.
And so what role does that play?
Right.
And what's interesting is when you Google this painting, which is not real.
Right.
But
you
people
don't get the mirror.
But right.
That
people
really
have recreated this picture, but none have included the mirror.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they've read the whole book.
Yeah.
Maybe that means something.
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, so one of the versions of the book does appear to have the painting, or a painting of this on the front. But yeah, it doesn't include the mirror, which I find is really disappointing.
Why? And maybe because it's actually very challenging. Maybe it's because in all the descriptions that we've gotten of the painting, it's a little unclear as to what's up with the mirror.
Yeah.
There's something about what it's reflecting that isn't quite accurate.
Yeah. And
maybe that's a spoiler. I don't know. Here, let's check out the comments. I've seen some stuff popping up. Peggy says our sound sounds fine.
Cool.
So I do appreciate that feedback.
Epigraph. Yeah, that's probably right.
Oh, thank you. The little quote in epigraph. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. And yeah, but you got to worry about the people who are playing to win, not just enjoying the game. That is very interesting that our new dude coming in, the chess master.
Right.
He doesn't care about winning the game.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's going to affect what kind of character he is in this book overall.
Maybe. Yeah, and I wouldn't take that point to mean anything too much about like our painting necessarily. Like it could be a nod to something. For example, like I think that Cesar calls Julie a princess. Like I think that's a nod to something.
Interesting.
But this guy's like disinterest in winning, I'm not sure means anything. And it's also like a point I kind of understand, right? He knows he could win. He's just playing for the enjoyment, and I absolutely get that. But yeah, I definitely think that he's probably my most favorite character so far. I find the other ones generally unlikable. But Peggy is enjoying this book.
I like Caesar. I like Caesar.
Yeah.
Let's see. Also, loving it. It's so chopping and
it lacks coherence.
All right.
So I want to talk about this right now while we're on this point, right? We're like talking about the style of this book, and it is choppy and incoherent, and there is something to that I do think is like interesting, but I find the interludes to be incredibly long, and then I don't remember like what I'm doing by the time we come back. And it's all like it's so incredibly descriptive, right? And I think it's probably too descriptive. And I think back to other books we've read, and in Three Body, I thought the metaphors were beautiful, and I thought the description was generally lacking, and I think that was a translation issue, like just it didn't come over well. And I'm willing to believe the same thing here, and that maybe these descriptions, or maybe in Spanish literature, things are highly descriptive, or maybe that's just how this guy writes. I don't know. But it's just too much. And the one particular aside that I'm thinking of is in the chapter right. I think it's right after Julia comes back from talking to the police, and she's sitting there with Cesar, and it describes their clothes for a page and a half, and I don't care. I just don't care. And then I was like, I literally after that page had to go back to the last chapter and be like, what happened, and then come back to it, right? Now that being said, and part of what I think bugs me about that is that some things, like we do, it is incredibly choppy. We'll be doing a thing, and then all of a sudden Julia will give us 3 pages about this memory of a past relationship, and then we'll get back to the story and we'll be going, and then she'll have this 1-sentence memory of a past relationship, and it doesn't dive into that one. And like, why are we picking these different things? And so to that point, there was a chapter where she was like sitting on the floor. It was the chapter where she got 3 phone calls in one day, right? And so we just got done, I think, talking to Cesar and like describing all their clothes and like all this other stuff. And there's a 3-sentence paragraph about the first phone call she gets, and then there's like a larger paragraph about the second one, and then there's like a page or 2 about the third. And then I was like, you know what's weird is that this guy didn't describe the phone, and then he does, and I'm like, he did. It's a cord phone. She doesn't have a cell phone.
Right, because this is an older book.
Yeah, but it's a cord phone.
Yeah.
Why do I know that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just, it's incredibly descriptive, and if that's for you, that's for you. But I find it jarring, and it takes me out of the book. So.
But it makes me wonder about Julia, since she's, I don't know if she's our narrator, but it's definitely following her as our main person. And so one of these very long descriptions was when she's leaving the police station and she's kind of lost in the colors of the night. And that goes on, and you're like, are you driving or are you walking? And then she's like, oh no, I'm running away from this person who I think is following me.
Yeah.
So she kind of, I was like, this feels like I'm reading a little acid trip.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. And then there was also this long scene of her getting kind of hypnotized and lost into the painting. I think some of this description going on and on and on might be some insight into Julia.
Yeah. So I also have the same thought, right? Like, so knowing that I don't particularly care for it, how can I, what is the most charitable interpretation that I can have, right? And one of it is that, like, Julia ain't all right, and like, it's totally possible, at this point, we know that Alfonso, or whatever, what's his name? Alvarez, the boyfriend? I don't think his name is Alvarez, but
I don't remember.
that guy. He dies. And he could have just fallen and slipped in the shower, and she's a nutcase.
Yeah.
Who was just like making all this happen. And of course, this takes me back to the silent patient. What if there was nobody out there in the woods, right?
Right.
And so that's entirely possible. I also think this is an issue that I have with TV shows, particularly Yellowstone, which I never made it past the first episode of because
so
I find
can't be a good judge.
I can't be a good judge. We will watch it again. I found nobody to be redeemable, so I stopped watching. Like, there was nobody to.
Oh well, I don't think anyone's redeemable in this show.
Well, but like it was uninteresting because I didn't have it.
You didn't
I didn't
know
have
who
a
to root
team,
for.
right? I feel the same way here.
There's no one to root for.
There's no one to root for. They're all like, at least skeezy at best, right?
Mhm.
Cesar included. But part of the descriptions might be that like that is how these people think, right? They are focused on the fact that this painting has this history, blah blah, and like those kinds of things just kind of pass through your head, and like, oh, look how
Mhm.
cool I am, right? Like, um, they are. I am somewhat notorious for like not paying attention to detail, and if you said, what color shirt was I wearing this morning, I would not know. I wouldn't know what color shirt I was wearing.
Mhm.
Those kinds of things just don't matter to me, but they do absolutely matter to these people, right? The kind of soap that they had, and the fact that her particular kind of perfume that she also gets from Paris,
Yeah.
you know,
That
oh
made
my
me
god,
laugh.
yeah,
Julia is very judgmental.
yeah. Well, so is Menchu, you know.
Yeah, and I was real disappointed in Julia for like hardcore judging Minshew for like showing her legs and stuff.
Skies
If you
out, thighs
have
out.
exactly, if you've got good legs, I don't care if you're 92,
Yeah.
you should show them. And if this is your game where you're just entertaining young men because you can, well, that's fine. Meanwhile, Julia's hanging out with married men. So like where is she, where's her like room for judgment? But this is why I think that everything that we're reading we need to take with a grain of salt because we're catching it through Julia's perspective.
Right.
Just like how I thought in The Silent Patient, like what if we can't trust our narrator?
Right.
All we can see is what we see through Julia here.
Right.
And that people are imperfect, right? And people are judgmental and people do stupid things.
Right.
And so we're catching all of that through her. And I think that we can try to appreciate that.
Right.
You want to get caught up on that?
Yeah, one like last point to this is that I would like to read some like reviews of this book and see what other people think, specifically Spanish people. Maybe these characters aren't likable for them either,
Yeah.
And maybe that is the thing, right? The focus, the attention to detail is really an attention to like materialism, and this sort of like investigating a murder is almost like the most real thing that has ever happened to these people.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing that is ever that is life and death, and it's so far removed from like this weird bubble that they live in that's like so self-absorbed, and like I found some of the descriptions to be really pretentious. Just she had this mirror that was special, and she made sure to listen to her Vivaldi and the steam of her shower. It's like, find something to worry about. Just do something real with your life, and then this is it somehow. Maybe that's the point. I don't know.
But it just might also be that we don't understand because we are not curators and protectors of art. When your job is literally, to figure out how much pressure to put on a cotton ball as you're cleaning off old varnish, you pay attention to different details and you value different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Still not a real problem.
Meanwhile, I'll just take the pledge to anything. I'm like, well, there went the finish on that piece of wood. Whoops.
and like I'm not, I joke about that, but I just like the obsession, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this obsession with these like weird details that are just unimportant ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I'm also the person where if you said what's your favorite band and I named it and you said who was in it, I couldn't tell you.
Mm-hmm. Well, because these are just not things that are important to you.
Yeah.
So speaking of, okay.
So do you want to do that?
Yeah, here. Okay, so let's see.
There's a lot of comments today. Good on y'all.
Yeah. Okay. So, Shelby's wishing, that there was a real piece of the painting that we could look at.
Yeah.
And Peggy saying she found one online. Peggy is not loving the book so far. Okay. Shelby had to reread parts of chapter 1 multiple times because she was forgetting what was going on. And yeah, me too. Peggy 1990, is that when this book came out? So yeah, we still had corded phones and couldn't just Google stuff.
I want to talk about this point about the cigarettes.
Yeah, nothing seems to break up those long descriptions from Julia more than a cigarette, an unfiltered cigarette, mind you, in front of the paintings that she's trying to restore.
One of the few conversations that Nicole and I have had about the book so far,
because we usually don't talk about it,
is that this woman is just like chain smoking in front of this piece of art that she like theoretically cares about
and is trying to restore. Isn't some of what the gunk you're taking off of restoration pieces like cigarette smoke?
What also bothers me is nobody's taken a siesta yet in this book. Nobody. Of all the detail we get, it was never like, and then it was nap time. That really bugs me.
Again, you see where the priorities are.
Yeah, fair
Um, yeah, the cigarette shoots one after the other. I want to throw up on behalf of Julia.
enough.
Peggy, yes, I wonder if she indulges since her boss is so happy, like when she got lost inside the painting. Yes, but Julia seemed kind of judgy when her boss did the little line of code. So.
Now, I want to jump to that point too, right? The thing about getting lost inside the painting, and the whole idea that like the Flemish masters were trying to bring you in and make you feel as if you were a part of the painting. That is why that particular style of art is chosen, is because they are now in that painting. It has reached across time, it has pulled them in. Yeah. Well, I mean, not like the descriptions in this book. I think like the metaphor is pretty good. So.
Yeah, this concept, the subject
I'm
is very interesting.
I'm here for it. Yeah.
Yes, and I noticed, chapter 5 went by much faster than chapters 1 through 4. So we might have just been
That's true.
bogged down in some exposition, and that required them setting the stage of some history for us to be able to play along.
Yeah, maybe.
And maybe that was just kind of.
I like the history, right?
I knew you. As soon as I was reading this timeline, I was like, Jason's here for it.
That was my favorite part. 1477. This guy dies.
It's like minutia. Let me flip it.
I'm over here with like a little yarn wall.
I did have to bookmark that page though, because I was like, wait, who was already dead, and who is Beatrice, and who is whatever?
Yeah.
Because Beatrice killed everybody. That's who it is. Anyways, let's see. Haha. Says Allison. Let's see. Shelby says, yes, I do not understand how she's allowed to have a painting at home either.
Yeah. And then she like just tells somebody, hey, it's at my house.
So like security,
yeah.
That's an issue. It's a private piece. It's not a gallery piece. That's a very good point, Peggy, that this is just, someone owns this.
Yeah. But like your apartment's not secure.
I feel maybe she has like extra insurance taken out,
1%.
No, but I mean,
1% of the fee is for insurance. That is specifically in there in all the detail we get.
That is not enough.
The fee rate. Not only is this book so incredibly descriptive of everything, but I know exactly the fee breakdown when this thing gets sold at Claymore's and why it's not there, or why it's there and not necessarily at Barclays or Sotheby's or whatever. Like, I know who gets what cut.
That's very funny. So, okay, speaking of weird elements and things to think of. So we have our trio in the painting. We have Beatrice and Ferdinand and the third.
Aris.
Thank you.
Roger de Aris. Or something.
And then we have our trio of Julia and Caesar.
Mm-hmm.
And the chess dude? Are we... And
Or
Minshew,
Minshew?
does she count?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. She's just there.
We also had this weird trio that got its own chapter title. Lucinda, Octavia, and Scaramouche.
Scaramouche, yeah.
And so I Googled what these were, and they were like Spanish versions or German versions, I don't remember, kind of like Hummels, little porcelain figurines.
Mm-hmm.
And these figurines represented traveling actors, like troops and stuff back in the day. So they're all very like weird looking, kind of creepy and dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, Scaramouche is known as being like the clown.
Mm-hmm.
Did you already know this?
I knew that part.
How?
So they are very famous, like little puppets that you do on strings.
Oh, oh, interesting. Because like puppets are like chess pieces,
yeah,
right?
I don't recognize the other names, but Scaramouche is a.
Wow. So yeah, he's in black and white. That's how he's depicted in the porcelain trinket. And he was beaten for boasting. That's all I could get. Octavia. I don't know. It was really hard to get information about it. Now I wrote something down and I don't remember what it means. But Octavia was like being courted. And then Lucinda was very delicate and pretty. And these are 3 pieces that are in Caesar's shop that he won't sell because Julia loves them. But why? Because they're ugly. They're worth a lot of money, like thousands of dollars.
I really took that to just, it was, in my mind, that was just another nod to like rich nonsense. Like it was just, and like now that I think about it, like the acting piece could be something, right? Somebody making you do this dance.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't necessarily take, now if you're going to talk about trios, we also have another trio, right? And it's the family.
Yes, the owner of the painting and his niece.
Yeah,
and
her husband.
nephew-in-law,
Yeah.
who are all very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have all that much to say about them yet. The young man seems to be the one who's trying to sell the painting, and the old man feels like the obligation to do it to pay them back for taking care of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think they are necessarily involved in the mystery at this point. I'm not like pegging them for murderers. I think they're just like trying to get their quick buck. And the way to do that is by not killing the people who are selling your stuff.
Right. Okay, so the ex-boyfriend Alvarez or whatever,
Whatever his name is. Yeah. Alonzo? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't remember. Sorry. I should have written it down. He was commissioned by somebody else to do some research.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's killed, but his documents still make it to Julia.
Yeah.
And he won't tell who commissioned him to do this research.
Correct. Alvaro. Thank you. Alvaro.
Thank you.
So, yeah. So somebody kills him. It is safe to assume, I would think, that if somebody kills the historian, they don't want that information to get out. Somebody else then provides that information to Julia. I do not think it is the same person.
Okay, so
or the murderer is not the person. The person who kills Alvaro is not the person who commissioned him to do the research in the first place, and has basically stolen the research from being available to the original hiring person, and has instead provided it to Julia. That makes sense. I'm into that one.
So Van Huys painted this painting,
Mm-hmm.
painted the little inscription, and then painted over it.
Mm-hmm.
Why would anybody care 500 years later who killed the knight? Or who took the knight?
It's not a question of who killed the knight. The question is why.
But who would still be invested in it 500 years later to cover it up?
Who might be? Why would you have a random crossbow guy kill a knight?
I don't know.
What if you got your wife pregnant?
Yeah. So someone's a descendant of Beatrice here?
Someone is royal blood and is not really. Right? And so the point is that you aren't really a descendant of
like you're a bastard or whatever.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You're not the king, right? You're not really, and so my guess is either somebody in the royal family of France or Germany, which I think is now where Burgundy is.
I was
actually,
very confused about
it's actually part. Burgundy's really weird. I play a lot of history games, but
I knew you'd be able to help us with this.
It's kind of this is why Austria keeps getting mentioned. It's in like the Tyrolean Alps here between Italy and Germany and Austria.
I was singing the Goat Herd song from Sound of Music the entire time I was reading this book.
But yeah, so that's my guess, right? Is that there's ultimately a descendant of this duke, and that person is now somebody.
Right.
But that person shouldn't be somebody. Not that anybody would care after 500 years. Like
right,
nobody's going to take
1990. Like there's not any real kings.
Nobody's going to take your stuff away. Maybe your title, and maybe that's what they care about. But that's my guess right now, right?
Okay, so the man that owns this painting, isn't he somehow related to all these people somehow, and that's how he ended up with the painting?
Yeah. Well, so no, he is related to somebody who stole it from the sacking of some like Belgian town or something.
Oh, interesting.
So Flanders is the Low Country. It's Netherlands and Belgium, right? So it's not even close to where this all was like happening. Well, so actually that's not true. So Burgundy is down here, but where this guy lived, the Duke, that was actually in Belgium or something. So that is the appropriate area. But,
it's gonna come back to the Queen of England. That's
okay.
what this all is.
Okay.
She's not real.
Let's see what we got over here.
All right, let's see. Shelby says, if one of the trio in the painting is dead, will one of each trio investigating die?
Yeah, maybe. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. And Peggy says maybe his wife saw Julia kiss him and killed him. I support that. And then sent the research to Julia so she'd think he didn't want to see her. Yeah.
So then this is my other theory. Obviously, for whatever reason, I feel like it's natural in that in some subtle way we are being pushed to view Beatrice as like obviously this knight was hooking up with Beatrice, and so then like the king killed her. What if the knight's hooking up with the duke?
Yeah.
I think that's an option that we
Yeah.
shouldn't discard yet. And so because we're given like I think so there is one of your epigraphs. I think it's in chapter 2. It might be in chapter 3, but Sherlock Holmes,
Mm-hmm.
and he says to Watson, sometimes to figure out the past, you must be able to predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
And in the future, we have a cheating woman who could be Beatrice, right? We also have like a gay museum curator, right? And so like, but I just wonder if those are like just a little foreshadowing somehow. And so it's possible. I don't know why you would care to kill somebody over like a gay relationship 500 years ago.
Well, and who took the night could mean like took the love of the night.
It's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's possible. I have a feeling that, and so like I think we're going to be led to believe that it's like the king or the queen. I think the queen is a little too obvious. If we find out that the king took the knight, I won't be surprised. But I think we also know that there's like a bishop on the side.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling it's gonna be a chess piece that's not on the board, and I have a feeling we'll find out that like the bishop is the one who killed the knight or something. And then we'll have to figure out who the bishop was at that time and like why would that person possibly do this, and maybe it's to protect the royal bloodline and not let anybody know that this child's a bastard or something.
Okay. I like where all this is going. Peggy says she's also wearing black, like she's in mourning, and could that be something? Yeah.
That's Beatrice, yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Other famous Beatrices. Beatrice was the inspiration for Dante's works. Dante Alighieri, or however you say his name.
Alighieri.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she represented, the ideal of love, perfect love, probably unrequited.
Rough.
Yeah. Yeah. What else you got?
So,
this is turning out great.
So I'll tell you, right? I've got like these are my guesses. So then here is my wild card guess.
Okay.
And y'all know I like to do these because so far right now we know who, like so far right now I have guesses about who killed the knight. But then the question is, but who is the killer now, right? Like,
right. Oh yeah.
I could care less who killed the knight, right? Like that's interesting, but like who's trying to murder me?
Yeah.
I have no good guesses. If it is someone we have already been introduced to, it's Cesar.
Oh.
He is the murderer. Calling it now. That's my wild card.
What a shame.
He has access to all these people. He knows all these people, or like he knows what's his face, right? Alvaro. As other people get knocked off, if it's not Cesar, he also then has access to these people. And to what end, I don't know, but he already, he's some kind of art dealer. He has these connections with powerful people, and all this. So that's my guess.
Shucks. Shucks. All right. Let's see. I'm just checking my notes, see if there's anything else that I need to talk about. Nope, that's it.
I do like I like the chess metaphor because I like logic games, right?
Mhm.
And I did find the like retrograde analysis to
Yeah.
be really interesting. I absolutely understand like how it works, but being somebody who just can only amateurly play chess, it would probably take me a long time to do it. But it's still really interesting, and it's like it's a very good like thought exercise, I think. So I like it.
Yeah, beyond me. I don't have the patience for that. So speaking of Sherlock Holmes, there was like a little excerpt from some story. It wasn't written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, if you noticed.
Right, I noticed that.
Yeah, I was like, what was that?
Yeah.
But anyways, there's been like spinoffs and whatnot. But speaking of the man himself, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, his birthday is this week.
Oh.
And Caesar had also quoted something from Sherlock Holmes, and that's once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, is the truth. So I thought that that was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also this week Ralph Waldo Emerson's birthday. This week in literary history. Ding.
What if the reason? So we don't know anything about like Julia's, like where Julia's parents.
Yeah.
If that was in there somewhere, I just skip that page. I don't know. But for some reason, Cesar has been taking care of Julia.
Yeah,
Right?
he's really been her father figure.
And he calls her princess.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, so what if she's like royal bloodline?
She is the true heir. Yeah.
This is very Dan Brown.
Yeah. Dan Brownie.
Dan Brownie.
Yeah. Anyway, chew on that for a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. More for this week in literary history, just real quick, since we're kind of wrapping up. A couple of cool books that have been published in the month of May that we're going to mention just because this is a book club and we like to recommend things to read. Astrophysics for people who don't have time for astrophysics or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's by Neil deGrasse Tyson. That book was published in May. Dan Brown's Angels and Demons.
Oh, yeah?
Published in May. 1,000 Splendid Suns and The Kite Runner, which I super recommend. 1,000 Splendid Suns. No book has ever made me cry harder in my whole life. And then I'll give you the rest next week. Cool books published in May that would recommend you take a little dive into. We got a couple more comments real quick. Ooh, okay. He also knows Dirty Cops.
Yeah, he does.
Interesting. So he has the ability to like blackmail people. And
that was another part too where I laughed about, like, we get all this description and then when it comes to the cops, it's just like, hey, sometimes this guy finds stuff and then he can get a cut of it. Okay. Of all the things you could have described, I want to know more about the crime, right? Why didn't we get 2 or 3 pages explaining exactly how that scheme worked? We got like 2 sentences where like, the guy gets a cut.
Also, of all the things that this book describes, you know, why didn't we have the cop describing the details of Alvaro's body, the way they found it? He was like, we saw some things that seemed suspect, you know, but then he didn't like go into it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting too. Shelby wants to know more about the artist. Did he do that himself or did someone tell him to? Right. Was this a commissioned painting or did he have something that he wanted to share?
Yeah.
Maybe the artist is really the one who's missing out on his cut of royalty. You know, maybe he's the timeline doesn't match up for that, but you know, maybe he's telling this story because he's missed out on something.
Yeah.
Peggy had literally just said the same thing aloud to her walls. The Dan Brown thing. And then Shelby said, that meaning the inscription hidden in the painting.
Yeah. You know, I think he wrote it himself. I don't know why he like chose to do this painting, right? Like he just may be feeling the need to, you know, he painted this thing after the knight is dead. And I think the people at the time would have recognized, especially if the knight was into chess and playing with the duke or whatever, like they would have known, like, hey, that's what this is kind of about, maybe. And I think it was probably just a little too on the nose, and he didn't want to die, right? And so I think that'd probably be why he painted. I definitely buy that concept. I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, and so why include the inscription? Why hide the inscription?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, and if he intended to include and hide the inscription, well, what's the point? He didn't know that anyone would ever be able to find that inscription.
Yeah, I definitely think that the one thing we can rule out is the idea that he hid it knowing that someday people would be able to find it. That seems highly unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we just wouldn't have a story about the painting if they hadn't found that, because nobody would have been like, oh, clearly this is a mystery, you know.
Right.
And people at the time may have not been able to either, right? He might have painted it originally to like really call into question, and it was like, this was a terrible idea, but like I have to sell this painting, so see you later.
So we have a lot of questions. So okay. The overall feeling after having read this first part is kind of meh, right? Like meh, like it's exhausting to read.
Yes.
Obviously, though, there is a story here that we're interested in and we have questions about.
Yeah.
So we can go into the second part of our reading with some excitement. I think that things are going to heat up some.
I hope so. And maybe as characters die off, maybe things will get less descriptive because there are fewer people to describe.
And also take some comfort in knowing that your brain, as you become a more skilled reader, automatically filters out what it considers to be minutia, details that probably don't really matter. And so you can kind of start skipping those paragraphs with all the description, but just be careful because the author might throw something in there that means something later. Just saying. Peggy says, gotta give props to the subtle insult of modern art. Julia said that the old painting lasted better because the artist took more care.
Yeah.
I did think that was a cool detail, that because we tend to rush and do things quickly, the art now cracks and doesn't hold up.
Yeah. I noticed a translation error.
Yeah.
Or somebody who translated it in English who doesn't understand English.
What was that?
It was very wham bang, thank you, ma'am.
Oh yeah. I was like, that's
no
supposed
one
to be bam.
says that.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And also there was missing a period somewhere.
Oh, was it?
A new sentence started and there was no period before the last one.
Well, that might have just been like a
It's just a typo.
But this was like
But that's okay. But that was an actual translation error. Yeah, that was funny. But now that is the saying, wham, bang, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. We've I don't know if we've talked about this yet, but we've been working on books you never read shirts and mugs and things like just like fun stuff that like those of you who are actually hanging out with us, we could like just send you something that'd be nice for you to have. But yeah, we should make a shirt that says wham bang thank you, ma'am.
Or just wham bang.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't want anyone thinking we're promiscuous.
Yeah. I would never really make that shirt. Maybe a mug. Something for you to put your cigarettes in.
Unfiltered. Peggy says merch. It might cost too much to ship to Russia.
We have no illusions that like people like really want this stuff, but it's been a lot of fun to
just to come up with some ideas and things that might be fun. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. For our new viewers, I want to thank you for being here. Part of me wishes that this had been a more exciting book, but I'm also glad that you got to see something that is where we're not always going to be positive about books, right? Like so far this is in the running for the bottom 2 books we've read, and the other bottom one is Dan Brown. So I'm just saying, right? But I like that this group can be positive, right? Not only us, but you guys at home. And I'm a big fan of. We're still picking it apart. We're still thinking about it, and part of me was worried it'd be like 5 minutes, and be like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So.
But there's still plenty to talk about, and at some point in the book club, we might hit a book that we decide not to finish.
Yeah.
But I always think it's worth it. Once you've started it, you might as well just knock it out, and just see where it goes. Yeah. So I told you so about that book. She's talking about Peggy. Peggy said, I told you so about Deception.
I like aliens. So we were discussing this morning that we haven't really read like a high fantasy yet, and I want us to put that on the list, right? So y'all be thinking about like what are some fantasy books that you have not read, because I would like for the group to do something new, and maybe something that's just a one-off, something that's not part of a series. But I would like to dip into that because we've done several sci-fi now, but like maybe we could get some more folks interested in reading along with all the other things if we did something like that. So yeah, so we've been talking about Dune. We have been, and it's on. If Greg Fox is hanging out here, he just got excited by that. No, we are excited about Dune.
I very much want to read Dune.
Because believe it or not, neither of us has read Dune yet. So
right, but one of our favorite like power quotes that like gets us through hard times is actually from Dune.
Yeah, we really love the litany against fear. So, and we love the Dune movie.
Yeah.
And I have read part of Dune. It's another one of those ones where it's like kind of descriptive and weird. But so anyway.
But my problem with Dune is that it's not a proper audiobook.
Yeah, all of them are like weirdly abridged.
It's abridged, even though it says it's not abridged. The narrators come in and out as different voice actors, and it's all very confusing.
So, Dune hits up a grass, dude. Cool.
Shelby has read Dune.
All right, so go ahead and start reading for next week. Our reading is going to be chapters 6 through
11, probably.
Sounds right. chapters 6 through 11. And remember that now, if you don't have the time to watch on Sunday, or if you want to like listen to it on your commute, we are available on YouTube Music, and you can listen to the show there. It's going to be live though, so you'll hear us like laughing at comments. But it's available.
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking about how some people might be listening to this on the podcast and not watching it and able to see the live comments. So I'm trying to be more intentional about when we read a live comment or a live chat that we say like, oh, so and so said whatever.
That makes sense.
Trying, but always give us feedback. Let us know.
Yeah.
What you're thinking, what we can do to improve.
We're growing slowly.
Yeah.
So. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you all very much. We will see you next week.
Happy reading.
Bye.